LifeWave. David Schmidt began his career in medical device design and manufacturing. In 1996, he moved to Atlanta, where he returned to his passion for inventing by joining an inventors club, winning numerous awards, and eventually forming a company based on one of his inventions.
One day I was giving a presentation for a government contractor, and they invited me to be part of a design team for one of the Navy's next generation mini-subs. So we were trying to find a way to keep people alive longer, and I thought, well, I personally object to this whole idea of using caffeine and stimulants to stay awake, so maybe there's a new way that we could approach this. So I worked on this for several years and developed the LifeWave prototypes. The problem was that we had just gone through 9/11, and the U.S. military was interested in weapons, not survival equipment. And it normally takes over 7 years to get a new product through the Navy. So I decided, well, I know that consumers are really going to love a technology that improves energy without having to use stimulants. So that's why I decided to go to the public with it.
And with those patch prototypes, David found his calling, and by summer of 2002, he launched the LifeWave company.
That first year of LifeWave was pretty rough. I remember I didn't get a lot of sleep. A very typical day for me was getting up at 6 in the morning, going about my day, doing work, phoning acupuncturists, medical doctors, athletes, personal trainers, working all day doing that, and then getting up late at night to make patches because we didn't have a patch manufacturing facility. And along the way, met one person that was interested in investing money, and he said, well, you know, I don't really know much about science or medicine. Could I have a medical doctor review this? And I said, sure. And as it turned out, that was Dr. Steve Haltiwanger.
I spent about 4 hours or longer interviewing him, and then came back a few days later and talked to him again. And so we had about 6 hours worth of conversation over a few days. Every question I asked, he answered, and I asked him very detailed scientific questions. So I realized this man actually knew what he was talking about. So I was very impressed. And I wrote a paper that was my way of explaining to the technology from more of a biological point of view. And I sent this paper to a number of friends that were in medicine to get a review. And one of them was Dr. Carl Merritt out in California. And he shared it with Coach Richard Quick at Stanford. He was a coach of the Stanford women's swim team.
So one day, I'm sitting in my home office in Atlanta, Georgia, and I get a call, and the voice at the other end of the phone says, David, this is Richard Quick. And then he tells me that he's been using the LifeWave patches in conjunction with Dr. Merritt, and he found that during the first 3 weeks of using the patches with his athletes, that 6 out of the 8 swimmers broke their personal lifetime best in their event. So this was absolutely huge. This was one of the breaks that I had been looking for.
That which seems extraordinary today will be commonplace in the future. If something can be done in 20 or 30 years in the future, why can't we do it today? That's what David Schmidt has done with LifeWave.
We got an opportunity to have our product on Olympic athletes. We got to have world exposure of the technology by having the athletes compete in the Olympic Games and in the Olympic trials. And I am very grateful to Coach Quick for that opportunity.
At the Olympic trials in 2004, a scandal erupted. The Stanford swimmers were doing so well that some of the other coaches accused them of using performance-enhancing drugs in the patches.
I met before the U.S. Olympic Committee and had to explain how the patches worked. They took the patches down to UCLA Microanalytical Lab, had the patches examined, and found out there weren't any drugs in them. The athletes drug tested negative, so they were completely clean. And we started to make national headlines because people wanted to know what were these patches and why were the Stanford women's swim team using them and doing so well with them.
This is a product that will really help people. It'll help people have more energy. It'll help them focus better so they can be more successful in whatever their endeavors are.